Tonight, when the sun goes down, you're going to flip a switch. Light will flood the room and you won't think twice about it. But for 99.9% of human history, that switch didn't exist. When the sun set, the world went dark. And that darkness didn't put your ancestors to sleep. It woke something else up inside them. You've probably had a night where you woke up at 3 a.m. for no reason. Not from a nightmare, not from a noise, just a thorough wake. Your heart isn't racing. Your mind is oddly calm. You lie there in the dark, annoyed, convinced something is wrong with you. But here's the strange part. That moment might be the most human thing you do all week. For most of history, sleep wasn't one long block. It was two. Historian Roger Ekirch spent over a decade combing through diaries, court records, and medical texts from pre-industrial Europe. He found hundreds of casual references to what people called first sleep and second sleep. So not as a disorder, as a normal part of the night. People would sleep for a few hours after dusk, wake for 1 or 2 hours in the middle of the night, and then drift into a second sleep until dawn. What did they do in that gap? Not scroll a phone. Not stare at a ceiling in frustration. They prayed. They talked quietly with a partner. They tended a dying fire. Some had sex. Some simply lay in the dark and thought. Ekirch's research suggests this waking period was so ordinary that entire cultural rituals formed around it. Sleep, it turns out, was never meant to be an unbroken 12-hour tunnel. It was meant to breathe. So why does your body still remember this, even now? Because evolution doesn't erase old software just because you invented electric light. Your circadian rhythm, the internal clock that governs when you feel alert or drowsy, was shaped over hundreds of thousands of years by fire, moonlight, and darkness. It wasn't shaped by a bedroom that never really goes black because of a phone charger blinking in the corner. See, once you wake at 3 a.m., your body isn't malfunctioning. It's running a very old, very patient program. But there's a deeper question hiding underneath this one. Why would waking up in the middle of the night have ever been useful? Sleep is dangerous. For an animal without claws, without night vision, without much muscle compared to a lion or a hyena, being unconscious for 8 straight hours in the open is a gamble. Unless something built in periodic wakefulness on purpose. This is where the story gets stranger. Neuroscientist Jerome Siegel and his team studied sleep patterns in 3 modern hunter-gatherer societies, the Hadza of Tanzania, the San of Namibia, and the Tsimane of Bolivia, groups whose lives resemble in some ways how humans lived for most of our history. What they found overturned a popular assumption. These groups didn't sleep in 2 neat blocks like Ekirch's European records described, but they also didn't sleep straight through. They woke briefly, multiple times throughout the night. Almost like a built-in check-in system, a few seconds or minutes of alertness, just enough to notice if a predator was near, if the fire had gone out, if a child had wandered off. Waking up at night wasn't a glitch. It might have been a survival mechanism disguised as insomnia. Think about what that means for you, lying awake tonight. Your ancestors' brains evolved to interrupt sleep on purpose. Not constantly. Not in a way that left them exhausted, but enough to keep one foot in awareness, even in the depths of the night. You inherited that same wiring. The difference is you don't have a fire to check or a predator to listen for, so that ancient alertness has nowhere to go. It just sits there in the dark with you. Here's where it gets even more interesting. Anthropologist Carol Worthman spent years studying sleep across different cultures, from industrialized cities to villages with no electricity. She found something almost nobody expects. In societies without artificial light, people don't sleep more than people in cities. They sleep about the same amount, sometimes even less. What changes isn't the quantity of sleep, it's the structure of it. Multiple short wakings. No anxiety about being awake. No panic about wasting time by not being unconscious. That last part matters more than you might think. In one of Worthman's most quoted observations, people in these societies treated nighttime wakefulness as unremarkable. Nobody was staring at a clock doing anxious math about how many hours of sleep they had left. Nobody was catastrophizing about tomorrow's meeting. The wakefulness itself wasn't the problem. The problem, if you can call it that, only showed up when a culture started treating sleep as something you're supposed to control, measure, and optimize. Which brings us to something a lot stranger than insomnia. Some researchers believe the quiet hour between first and second sleep may have functioned as an incubator for the human